It's odd that you can worry about meteors and cosmic explosions all you want, but the biggest killer of all times is already here, and is doing fine. In fact, life's oldest and most deadly enemy is preparing for yet another devastating attack on the human race. Diseases. Don't ever underestimate them. You see, human and germs have always lived side by side, but every once in a while the germs attack. Then suddenly there's AIDS, or SARS, or what have you. And SARS is still relatively mild, merciful disease. The Black Plague killed hundreds of millions of people, at its high day, ridding Europe of a quarter of its population. The Spanish flu that ran rampant in 1918 killed 20 to 40 million men, quadrupling the death toll of World War I. And in the US alone, the epidemic killed more people than World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War combined. Now sure, our doctors like to reassure us that everything is under control by now. No offense, but that's a lie. The grim reality is that our world is more vulnerable to disease than ever. That's because our world is so densely populated, intensive agriculture brings humans closer to animal pathogens, and people themselves are a sociable species, constantly interacting with each other and traveling around the globe all of the time. And the diseases? Haven't we all seen them by now and cured them? Well, we haven't. And the big problem is that viruses and microbes aren't inert, lifeless things. They live, and like all that lives, they evolve. That's why there will always be new diseases. Evolution constantly throws new lethal germs at us. Suddenly, an innocent animal virus jumps the species barrier and begins to slaughter humans. AIDS started out as an innocent monkey disease, the Spanish flu of 1918 jumped from pigs to humans, and Ebola probably comes from bats, and SARS is closely related to a virus that lives in ducks and cows. And it isn't exactly comforting to know that some diseases kill virtually everyone they infect, like AIDS. Or consider the flu, say influenza, and you tend to think of a mild disease, but in fact the flu is by far the most lethal opponent of human life on Earth. In its lethal Spanish flu form, influenza causes you to die a horrible death. And no, you just don't want to know the details. Okay, you do. In a matter of days, you'll see your hands and feet turn black, and they literally begin to rot away. You'll cough up blood and lung tissue, you'll have seizures and hallucinations as the fever boils your brains, and in the end, you'll slowly drown, as your lungs are filled with slime and discharge. Terrible names were whispered, a witness to the 1918 epidemic wrote, "This was not influenza, this was a plague. The world was coming to an end." In 1997, 1998, and early 2003, new strains of influenza jumped from chickens to humans in Hong Kong, killing 8 people in total. In April 2003, another bird flu strain contaminated 8 people and killed 1 in Holland. In all cases, we were lucky. The flu didn't combine with a human flu virus, turning it into a virus that's contagious for men. But it is a matter of time before it does. Then we'll have a monster on our backs. SARS, anthrax, and smallpox could be just flimsy colds compared to the next strain of killer flu. And if that didn't frighten you yet, there's an eerie possibility that a notorious old disease such as measles, cholera, tuberculosis, smallpox, or yes, the Black Plague suddenly makes a comeback. With diseases, it's like beetling about in a minefield. You could take a few steps, but the next step you could suddenly kick the bucket. And the bad thing is, no one knows when, where, or how it will go wrong. However, there's one small comfort. It is very unlikely that a disease will wipe out the human race altogether. No matter how massive the attack of the germs is, there will always be individuals around that are somehow fit enough to fight the disease and survive. Well, at least that's how things went until now. On the other hand, it doesn't really help that humans themselves sometimes create a new disease in a laboratory. Early 2002, for example, an Australian research team turned a quite harmless virus into a fearsome killer by sheer mistake. It literally killed everything it infected. Gladly, the Frankenstein virus didn't make it out of the lab and into the land of the living. But the incident gives a taste of what can go wrong when you do genetic engineering on viruses. And no, you don't want to think of what might happen if some mad doctor or terrorist decides to find out what happens when you upgrade anthrax a little bit, or piece it together an airborne version of the Ebola virus. Now, one way or the other, it is almost certain that there will be another outbreak of some kind of killing disease somewhere. The 20th century saw the Spanish flu, AIDS, Ebola, and many, many other less heard of epidemics. What will the 21st century bring? Let's hope we can at least blame nature for the damage and don't have to learn that some careless scientist made a horrible mistake.